Hey everyone, before we get into the podcast, we want to announce some updates with our Power Monkey courses leading into 2022. We are excited about continuing to offer our gymnastics and weightlifting combo courses, 1 and 2 day offerings. If you go to powermonkeyfitness.com, search under the events tab, you'll be able to see what we already have on the agenda for 2022. We will be expanding into kettlebell offerings as well. Those are already up on the site too. If you're looking to host one yourself, please contact us at info@powermonkeyfitness.com and we'll get one of the courses out your way if one's not already on the agenda. Come hang out with us, learn some technical expertise when it comes to weightlifting, gymnastics, and now kettlebell. Hopefully see you soon. Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, and this week my co-host is Mike Service. Now, many of you know Mike from being a weightlifting coach with the Power Monkey world. He's an incredible guy, and we're lucky enough to get him on as guest host this week coming in from Europe. For our guest, Margaux Alvarez. Now, Margaux is, of course, an incredible athlete, having competed at the CrossFit Games as an individual athlete many times over, having been a finalist at the Titan Games, as well as having been a part of seminar staff for CrossFit for a number of years. But what we ended up talking a lot about is her entrepreneurial background, being a winemaker of goat wine of Celeste by Margaux Alvarez. And we talk a little bit about what it's taken to get to the point where she's actually been able to sell wine growing up in that world, and some parallels between trying to get a new brand off the ground and also what it takes to be an elite athlete. I'm a huge wine fan. This is definitely kind of a part one for us with this podcast because there's so much more to talk about with Margaux, but we ended up speaking a lot about wine. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one, get a little bit of her fitness background, but a little bit more in terms of what she's doing outside of fitness with wine, some of the other cool projects she has going on. We love talking with Margaux. We're lucky enough to have her coming out to the next Power Monkey camp to do a wine taste as well, but we hope you guys enjoy this episode. Well, Margaux, thank you so much for taking the time with me and Mike today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you've obviously had a very full life already, tons of things going on, not just in the fitness world. And there's a part of your life that I just want to spend the entire time on. I don't even think I'm going to let Mike speak because of my interest and love of wine. We'll get into that in a second. But before we get into some of that, I want to hear a little bit about your background, just kind of where you are now. I think you're living in Las Vegas these days, but how you got to that point. Can you give us as quick as possible, just a little bit of tidbit, kind of how you grew up, where you grew up, and how it took you to where you are today?
Definitely. I'll try to keep it a condensed version.
Yeah.
So was born in California, myself and my two sisters, moved around a little bit when we were younger, moved to Montana when I was 8 and was pretty much raised in Montana. So I consider that home. That's kind of my home base that anytime I try to go back to is what I resonate with. And so graduated high school there, went to university in Hawaii, lived there for about 5 years, studied there, and then did some study abroad programs while I was there. Then I moved to the Bay Area in 2008 after I graduated. Always wanted to be in the health and fitness industry of some sort, some fashion. Started working in it as a marketing assistant at a health club, and then eventually got into personal training. Loved that. That kind of was a segue into CrossFit. I was definitely that Kool-Aid drinking girl when I found it. So fell in love with it. Just loved the community, loved the challenge that you present yourself. And then from there, kind of dove head into competing and wanting to, do and see what I was capable of just as an individual. And so I know it was a very short and condensed version.
Yeah.
But I lived in the Bay Area till 2014, and then I moved around Texas, Montana, Utah, and then now Vegas. So moved around Midwest, Southwest a little bit. Some of it was for training to put myself in a good environment. Other times it was for the business, to launch the wine business. And then most recently Vegas was to grow the business, the company, and get more exposure and get into distribution. And so I now reside in Vegas. It's been almost 4 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
time has gone by.
Yeah, you've lived in some amazing places. Hawaii, well, the Bay Area is close to my heart as well, but nothing East Coast, huh? I never got to the East Coast and all those travels.
No, I've definitely
I heard Midwest, so maybe Ohio is probably a destination that you hold fondly, right?
Yes. So I have actually been to Ohio a lot. I mean, obviously Rogue's based there. I've gone there for the Arnold. Have a lot of friends out there. It's funny. My grandpa actually had a lot of family out there. They moved to, I believe, Akron, Ohio.
That's really close to me.
Is it? Okay, awesome. But I love Ohio. It's amazing. I think growing up in Montana and being in the outdoors and having the harsh winters. I've loved them. I enjoyed them. But I think as I get older, I favor the warmer weather, hence Vegas, the desert.
Yeah.
So the fitness side of it, you've traveled obviously quite a bit, and you've had such a successful career in the fitness world. What sports did you play growing up? And was that a big part? You said you started getting health and fitness when you moved to the Bay Area, but was sport and fitness a part of your early life?
Definitely. My mom specifically was very adamant about getting myself and my sisters into sports. My mom and my dad were both active, but as we were growing up, she put us in like tennis, taekwondo. When I moved to Montana, that was kind of where I was spending more time. I was doing taekwondo, horseback riding, a little bit of ballet. My sister was doing a little bit of jazz, did a little bit of golf. And I loved all those sports. I loved being active. I loved being outdoors. And as I got older, I was kind of guided by my parents saying, hey, if you want to get good at something, you have to focus on, one or two things versus 4 or 5. And for me, it's like, I want to do it all. I loved it all, but I agreed with that. So sports were definitely an active piece of my life, especially as a young girl. And then as I got older and as I got into high school, I focused on golf and volleyball. And a lot of people think like golf, isn't necessarily sport, but I think golf has a lot of transferability in terms of the mind game and your mental attitude. When you're playing 18 holes, 36 holes, you're playing in a tournament for multiple days, you need to have the capacity to not get too frustrated or too happy about a good day or a bad day. And I think that transferred a lot into my later years in CrossFit.
Did you end up doing anything in college while you were in Hawaii?
No, I didn't. I really wanted to go to University of Washington on a golf scholarship or volleyball scholarship. I was too short for volleyball and golf. I would have had to try to walk on. A lot of the women were hitting low 70s where I was hitting, high 70s, low 80s. So it would have been a challenge. Didn't get accepted. I got waitlisted, but got an acceptance letter later, but I already accepted HBU and they didn't have a golf team. So I tried myself and one other gentleman tried to initiate the golf team over there, but it didn't come to fruition. So I just decided to focus on study abroad or student exchange while I was over there. I would still run and go to the gym a little bit, but I wish I would have had that opportunity, but I didn't. But I think it was a good learning lesson because I was able to pivot and shift.
Uh-huh. And your life in Hawaii, Jordan and I were talking about this yesterday, whether or not we could live in Hawaii with the pace of life. And obviously it's paradise, right? You're living in the most beautiful place in the world, but going to college there might be a little different than everyday life. What was it like to be there for a number of years as a collegiate student? And would that be a place that you could see yourself settling down?
So I loved the opportunity. I actually never went out to go visit the university before I went out there, which I think is a good thing because if I would have gone out to visit what it was like, it wasn't my idea of a traditional college or university where you have dorms, it was still set up differently, but I think it actually worked out because I didn't really have an idea of what I should be going into. I hadn't kind of formulated something in my mind, but going out there and just diving head in, I was like, all right, this is a unique experience, but living there was different. The school I went to is definitely more focused on, bringing in international students. It's very diverse and it's very kind of opposite from Montana, from where I grew up. I grew up in a very small town. And for myself, I think I was yearning for something different. I wanted to meet new people. I'm a very extrovert individual, so I don't have a problem with meeting new people and starting conversations. And so living there for the 5 years that I did, I think it was a very eye-opening experience, putting myself into different situations. And I contemplated after graduating, do I want to stay here or do I want to go back to the mainland? And I loved travel and I wanted to go back. And I knew anytime I go back to the mainland, especially Montana, it was a good hefty price I'd have to pay for flights. And so my deciding factor was all right, if I want to travel and I want to do more, being on the mainland would be better. I still love going back and visiting. I've only been able to go back once or twice since, but I don't know if I would want to live there just because in terms of obviously what you're paying, you are paying a little more of a premium price. Gas, that's a whole different conversation, but not only gas, but food and everything else, because everything needs to be shipped out there, except for the limited supplies that are out there. I love the experience, but I think I'd rather go and visit and spend time there, see friends that I know there and experience it and then come back. That's just my personal preference. I know people that have lived there. I know people that I went to school with and they live there and they love it, teach their own. But again, it's something different living there versus going to visit.
Absolutely. Mike, you think you live out there?
Yeah, I probably. Margaux, I don't know if you know, I just spent the majority of all of the COVID lockdown on the island of Crete.
Wow, amazing.
And our, local neighbors were basically a herd of goats. So, maybe a little plug for your wine before we get into that. But I wanted to ask you with going to Hawaii. So you said 5 years there, and you also did some study abroad. But what was your focus point for study, and then what took you abroad?
So I went there for corporate communications, pretty much business communications. It was kind of broad. I wasn't really sure specifically what I wanted to do. I love communicating. I love meeting people. I love talking, sometimes too much. And so learning to figure out what I want to do business-wise, I thought, I took a marketing class, and that was something I really enjoyed. I loved the kind of creative aspect of it. And so as I went along, I knew that I wanted to be in some sort of communications field, but I wasn't sure specifically. So that was very broad based. I ended up doing international business and Spanish minor. My dad's originally from Mexico. A lot of my family's in Mexico. I'm half Spanish, Mexican. So I wanted to be immersed in that environment. So I was able to do a 6-week student exchange in Salamanca, Spain. And that was actually through which was like a sister school of HPU. And I loved it. That was where my Spanish was the best because you're immersed in it. Everything was in Spanish, so you had to speak it. And then I had the opportunity my 3rd year to go to Monaco. So I did the International University of Monaco there for about 3.5 months for a semester. And
I'm sure that was really good for business.
It was great. It's definitely different. I mean, you have like Monaco, then you have like Monte Carlo, like a little bit further away. I actually lived in Cap d'Agde in France, so about a 20-ish minute walk from there to the university. And again, multiverse. For me, it really expanded because I was barely bilingual. I could obviously speak English, speak a little bit of Spanish. I was taking a French class there to understand the language and hopefully immerse myself and communicate with everyone. But going over there, people had a minimum of 3 to 5 languages. And it was not that it was mind blowing in the sense where like, this is what people do, but I was kind of envious. I was like, man, I wish I could speak 3 to 5 languages. I wish I had that opportunity. I know the culture and the environment over in Europe is different, where like you're a lot closer to other countries. You have more access. I know the school system is obviously a little bit different over there, but for me, it was just an opportunity to be able to immerse myself in another cultures and learn from one another, but also study from different professors. And obviously it was a unique experience for sure. Like, I don't know if I'll ever live in Monaco, but I would love to go back and visit. And it was just, again, just different ways. And I think sometimes we get not stuck, but we get in that bubble of where we live and what we do. So when you go and travel abroad and see other places, especially as a young individual, it opens your mind to so many possibilities, whether that be, in your career or your personal life, whatever it might be. So I'm very grateful for those experiences. And it kind of shaped like, all right, what do I want to do? Do I want to focus more on business? Do I want to focus more on the cultural aspect of things in terms of immersing myself more there? And it was great experiences. And as I came back, I like, all right, well, I loved being active, and I loved the business, the communications, the marketing aspect, but it's like, I didn't have a specific, like, this is what I want to do. And I look back now, it's like, I wish I would have gone to school for, exercise psychology or exercise physiology, where it was more about the body and the anatomy, because that's what intrigues me a little bit more now. But again, we coulda, shoulda, woulda. Like, there's things that happen in our life for a reason. So
absolutely, I think we can probably all relate to that. And I'm just thinking of how you said, growing up in Montana and being such a small town. Probably not much diverse languages there, and that was very similar for me. And I didn't leave the country until I was 25. And now I spend most of my time out of the country. And being around so many people that speak so many languages, I think at first that can be a little bit intimidating, but very quickly, like, humbling and inspiring. And it was something I noticed with which Dave is maybe on the other end of the spectrum, him growing up in more of a, like a household of immigrants that came over from Italy and speaking multiple languages, and it just like normal for him. So it's always fun to hear other people's experiences with jumping into other cultures and how that's kind of propelled them into their current path. And
I think also, Margaux, I don't know if you know, but Mike is talking about his time in Crete during the pandemic, but before that, Mike was spending almost all of his time in Spain. So he was, I'm sure when he heard Spain from you, he's pretty excited about that too.
As soon as you said Salamanca, I just wanted to laugh, because I think we already have like only 1 degree of separation from all of your locations. So like, my weightlifting coach, his best friend lives in Bozeman, Montana.
No
And
way.
then, yeah, you said your grandpa's in Akron. And then one of our best friends in Spain, who's a really, really good athlete, CrossFit athlete, and has been our interpreter when we go to Spain. His family's from Salamanca. His name's Farron. And yeah, I hope he ends up listening to the episode, because it'll be like a big shout out for his family. His mom still lives there, and he goes there often.
That's amazing. I loved it. I wish I would have been able to spend more time there. And it was just a unique town. I mean, when I was there, I was 19, I think. Yeah. So I was young, very young, but I think just being able to go into different environments and be okay with maybe feeling uncomfortable, being okay with, maybe not knowing the answers. And it's funny because I think one of the most intimidating and kind of scary moments for me, not in terms of fear, but was when I was flying to Monaco. I think I was 20 at the time, maybe 21. And I was by myself. I'm in a city. I can understand briefly, maybe a little bit of French, but it's like, I don't know how to communicate where I'm going. Am I going to the right place? I have 2 suitcases. I hadn't been able to read it with my roommate. And so it's just that feeling of like, I don't know how to communicate. I don't know how to get around, but I think that is what allows us to grow as individuals. And that could be, applicable to going to a CrossFit gym for the first time. That could be, putting yourself in a new position with career, whatever it might be. And I think it's important as humans and as individuals, if we want to grow, we have to sometimes put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. And for me, I just look back and like, I'm so grateful to be able to go to those places and those experiences, and they're beautiful areas. And I hope to be able to return soon, because I think there's something about that like will be sealed in your body as what allowed you to propel yourself forward. And maybe a moment that you may not know right then, but maybe in the future where you'll be able to recall or look back and say, hey, if I can do that, I can do this.
It sounds like you're describing so many people's experiences from like training scenarios into competition, and then like even maybe scary business moments or business failures into reflecting back years in the past and being like, oh, that was the moment that a lot of things happened that I didn't know. It's fun to hear. Just knowing what you do now, more of your background, it paints a much fuller picture of probably why you, of course, were so successful competitively, and then now in a business industry.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to change topics a little bit and start talking a little bit about wine.
I actually thought Dave was I thought he was gonna ask you more about dogs, so I was really excited about that. So I blew that one. I was getting ready to ask you all the dog questions, but I'll stick with the wine.
If we may have to do a part 2, because I don't know how long the wine conversation is going to take, because this is where my heart really lies, just in this idea of, and I think maybe we romanticize the idea of wine and wine making and wine growing, and you having had such an experience in kind of all facets of it. I'd love to hear kind of how you got into it. It seems like it's a little bit of a family business in some way, something that you've been doing for a number of years, but how did it become a part of what you do? What did you fall in love with the wine business? And we'll get into kind of what you're doing now with it, but can you tell me the early stages of like, what clicked when you were out there and made you feel like you wanted to get a little bit more involved with the wine business?
So when we were younger, my parents, we always had a good relationship with wine. My parents would educate my sisters and I, would talk to us about, how to smell the wine, how to swirl it in a glass, different aromas. And even though we're young, it was something, I think, that it created this natural relationship or a normal relationship where people say, oh, you can't drink until you're 21. I think it was more of a cultural thing. I had the opportunity with my family to travel to Italy when we were in high school, and we didn't do much wine tasting there. I was 16 at the time, but just being introduced to it and showing and seeing the aspect, even in Spain, but seeing the relationship that people had with wine. And it wasn't like, I'm going to go drink and get drunk and, party. It was more about it being part of your lifestyle, it being part of lunch or dinner, where it's this natural relationship. You have a glass or two and it's pairing with the food. It's something that you get to enjoy versus you just slam back and, oh, now you feel a buzz. And I think that introduction was kind of laying the groundwork for the future. Fast forward, my family had a piece of property in Utah and it had water rights and it wasn't going to be used. And so we ended up turning it into the farm, where every year we'd go and plant grapes, and we'll plant grapes and then go and harvest. So in 2011, I went down there and helped my dad plant some grapes and vines into the land. We started with 2 lines of vines. And for me, I really loved the process of being outdoors. I love outdoors, and I actually loved, like digging into the dirt, digging a hole, whatever. And I do, like planting the vines, and they're lining everything up. I love that physical hard work. And I think that mirrors to a lot of things in life where I'm not afraid of that, but I loved falling in with that process of doing that. So then the following year, 2012, come back, my sister and my mom joined, and we would just harvest. And so you go down the lines, you cut the grapes. And I think for me, it's like you look back and you're like, oh, I cleared all those grapes, I cleared all those vines. I was able to put that work in, and I yielded, a barrel, or I yielded a wheelbarrow full of grapes. And for me, it was more about the process and the experience. And yeah, it might take me like 4 hours to clear one vine, but again, it's that physical work that you put in. It's rewarding. You feel like it paid off. And so I did that in 2012, 2013, 2014. I'd go back every year. I brought Alex in 2014. And in 2015, the following year, we were harvesting, picking the grapes. And this was just home production wine. So we'd harvest, we'd crush, distilling, all home production wine. You're allowed up to 200 gallons for personal consumption, which is a lot of wine. So it lasts a long time. You just can't sell it. There's a lot of legalities and red tape. So this was just kind of a fun thing to do. In 2015, after the games, that was my highest placing. I thought, well, I would love to win the games. I want that to be my aspect. That would be to my goal for that year. But then I thought, all right, we were talking about, what do I want to do then? What do I want to continue with? Because I know I'm not going to compete forever. I know I had a good number of years that I wanted to compete, but what do I want to do after that? And I loved the process. Like I said, I loved the physical effort, putting that in there. And I think that's, if you look at training, you look at career, you look at life, family, we spend so much more time like in that journey, in that process. With the wine, same thing. You have to plant the grapes. You have to let them wait for a number of years to actually harvest the wine or use that wine for bottling. Then you need to crush them, destem them, let them age in the bottle, wait to finally drink them. So usually it's a year or more for whites, or a couple years for reds, depending on what you're aging. And for me, it was like, I'm looking at this, I'm like, it's ironic how it mirrors a lot of things in life. But you want to go and snatch 200 pounds, or you want to be able to do, 20 muscle ups unbroken. It doesn't happen after that. Even though we might have that desire and want, we need to put the time and effort into the gym, the patience to be able to get there. Same thing with a career, right? Or going to school. It doesn't just happen in a year. Depending on the program, it's usually a 2 to 4 year, maybe 5 year process. And so for me, that was what really attracted me to it. Like if I could go outside and be in the farm all day, I would not mind it one bit. And so that was kind of the initiating pull factor into it. But if I wanted to actually launch a business and sell wine and get distribution, I had to create licensing. I had to start licensing. I had to do all that legal paperwork, get an LLC, and do all that. So we started with a family thing, but then Alex and I were the ones that took it into actually creating the license, or getting the license, creating the business, and actually making that jump to be able to sell. And I could see where a lot of people have struggles starting businesses, because it's a lot of time, investment, resources that have to go into it to launch it. And alcohol is even harder because every state is so different. So I know we'll get to there in the future, but as I rambled lots, that was kind of the initiating start of where I wanted to get. It was physically being the agricultural aspect of it was the physical part that pulled me in, because that's what I love the most. And again, as much as I wish I could continue to do that full time, that I've evolved into different parts and different pieces of the business. But I think for me, you get to have your hands in part of the process, and that one makes it so much sweeter. You are physically touching the grapes, physically crushing them, putting through the stemmer, bottling the wine, corking the bottles, putting the labels on. For me, it's that process, because at the end, I get to drink that bottle of wine, and depending on how much who I'm drinking with and how much we're drinking, you enjoy that process. But it was so much more time to get that wine into the bottle that I fell in love with.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me, and I have a lot of questions, so I apologize.
Not at all.
One, it's interesting to me that you fell in love with that part of the process. It's one of the things that we have written up in the Stanford Gym. We talk about a lot, this idea of taking pride in the process, right? That the end result is what people have a tendency to focus on, whether it's be on top of a medal stand or drinking that final bottle of wine or whatever it might be. But being able to enjoy the process is really a big separator in terms of someone that achieves success in a particular area or not. I've heard a lot within the wine industry that the part out in the field is extremely challenging. It's not the kind of thing that the average person wants to do on a regular basis, year after year, out there, putting their hands in the dirt the way that you seem to have gravitated towards. It's interesting to me that that's the part that made you fall in love with it, not the end result, not the success part of it, but the grind. Is that kind of your personality, and one of the reasons maybe why you're a successful athlete as well? Did you appreciate the process component of it, and what you do outside of just wine? Is that kind of how you're made up, that you like putting your hands in the dirt no matter what you're doing?
Yeah, I 100% think so. I think that being in that moment, in that process, enjoying it and seeing the small little wins or the small moments of happiness, or maybe the small moments of sadness because you're frustrated of missing a lift or missing a movement, or not cutting the grapes and cutting a leaf, whatever it might be. I think I've definitely fallen in love with that. I think that's just who I am. I'm comfortable putting in the work. I'm comfortable getting my hands dirty or physically putting the hours in to get there, because I think that's more rewarding. Yes, I'll get on top of the podium, or yes, I'll be able to open that bottle of wine or get it into that wine shop and see it on the shelf, and that's great. But how much time is that compared to how much time I just spent getting my hands dirty? And I for sure think that's who I am. And I think of it also that it mirrored a lot of things that I did with golf, in terms of, you spend 4 to 5 hours playing on the course, hitting every shot, every hole. And at the end you have your score, right? Your final 18 holes. But that moment of looking at your score and signing the score and the card and then handing it off to get your placing, that's like a couple minutes, whereas you just spent 4 to 5 hours. So it's like being okay with that, being happy with that. Because if you're not happy with that, then you're not going to be happy with the end result, or you're going to pretend that you're happy and it's just this ruse, and you're like, well, that's unfulfilling. So I definitely think that I am that type of person, that I love the grind. I love the process. Some moments there is more appreciation for it. Other times it's like, again. But I
Yeah.
think that's everything.
I think kind of with anything there's downside of it too, but can you overcome that? That's the part that most people aren't willing to do. They hit that roadblock and they just stop and they don't figure a way around it. Utah, you mentioned Utah as where the farmland is, where you had the water rights, where you actually start putting the vines. Utah is not often thought of as a wine hub in the States. You think Napa Valley, you think, potentially Oregon, you think wine country, and even Washington. I'm up in Oregon now. I live 20 minutes from Pinot country out here. And what kind of grapes do you grow in Utah? And does the climate, does the soil, does the temperature allow for something unique to grow down there, or are you kind of working with what you have?
No, so a lot of Spanish varietals, so like Tempranillo, Garnacha, Syrah, again, that theme. My parents love Spanish varietals, but so do I. I love a good Tempranillo. I love a Rioja. I love Syrahs. So it's a lot of those. There is a little bit of Zinfandel, a little bit of Carignan, which is typically a blending grape. And so the soil and the climate there is similar to what you would find in, Napa. The soil is a little more sandy, a little more clay-like, but it can retain the water relatively well. It's similar to Vegas in terms of the high temperatures during the day, and even like Paso Robles. Paso Robles has higher temperatures in the day, a little bit cooler nights. So Utah has that. Southern Utah has that. It doesn't get I would say it gets a little hotter during the summer. So I think that's where the harvest season comes a little earlier. So there are some whites out there that we have, some Sauvignon, and a Viognier, and those grapes probably, when we've done harvest in the past, could be, I could never come July because of the games, but I would try to come right after and do a little bit of harvesting. But that's usually like end of July, early August. And then because of the higher temperatures and the warmer climates, the harvest season is usually earlier. So in Paso or even California, Napa, harvest season could start anywhere from beginning to middle September and go all the way to the end of October, early November, depending on the weather and the climate and rain, etc. I think the latest we've ever done harvest would be end of September, early October. We started with everything in Utah, and it's funny because a lot of people think, like you said, Utah is like, oh, not really a wine region or wine area. There is no AVA out there, but back in the 1850s and 60s, the Mormon church contracted a German winemaker to make wine for the church, and they would use that to tax the wine, the cigarettes, tobacco. And so that lasted for about 20, 30, maybe 40 years at the most. But then they were starting to like split the wine and try to make it last longer, a little bit of abuse of it. So they decided to cut it out. So there is actually they call it like the Dixie wine era. There is some history there. In the Tokerville area, which is probably like 10 minutes down from where the farm is, the old winery that they had there is actually like an old historic building. So you have like the winemaking facilities on the bottom, and up above was the like area and houses or the rooms to like have people stay. And so it's cool to be able to drive by that. When I would go to the gym there in Utah, I would drive by that and see, and it's like, all right, it's cool, there's history there, but again, not as well known. And I started with that, but looking at licensing as I started to launch the business, it was going to be very difficult to get licensing because there obviously is influence there. So it's a lot longer process. It would have taken 2 to 2.5, maybe even 3 years to get licensing. And to be able to launch or to be able to sell or get distribution, I had to have licensing. So the best way for us was to do a custom crush agreement where we would harvest the grapes, load them into a trailer, drive them to California, and find a custom crush facility there. We were looking at 3 different spots, one in Napa, one in Temecula, and one in Paso Robles. And the one in Paso Robles actually worked out best. And funny story, the lady that I connected with, she's a really good friend of mine now, but she actually did CrossFit, the local affiliate in Paso. And I laughed because it's like, man, that circle of CrossFit that just kind of pulls people in, it was really cool. So we ended up doing that for the first 2 years. And because it's middle of summer and when you drive through Vegas, it's like 95 degrees at night, we would have to harvest all the grapes, get them all done within a day or two, load them into the trailer, go to sleep, try to wake up at like 1 or 2 in the morning, and then drive them down. Because it was about going to California, we gained that hour going from Mountain to Pacific time, but it would take a good like 9.5 hours to get there because of once you hit California, you have to go 55 pulling the trailer. Yeah, rules. Yep. But so, I mean, but that's what we had to do. So we'd have to leave early in the morning, because if not, like we had a little bit of refrigeration and AC in the unit, but if we left middle of the day, you have all that sun, all that heat. And if that pressure of the grapes are sitting, the bottom grapes are going to start to break. They're going to start to ferment, and you don't want any fermentation. You can't have any fermentation, because if it is, then it's not considered grapes anymore. It's not considered a fruit. It's obviously starting to turn into that wine. Obviously it'd be a process, but did that, multiple times over the years, and it was brutal, but we did have what we had to do. So did that, and I ended up applying for licensing in California and had to wait for paperwork and all that stuff, but we could transport all the grapes and get that started until we got the license. So did that for the first handful of years, and then launched in 2017 at the CrossFit Games in Madison. It was to say that was a stressful year was it was a lot. Trying to be anticipating for licensing, get paperwork done, get all the paperwork that needed to be done, and then sit and wait, then train for regionals. And I remember, I think regionals that year was middle of May 2017. And it was, I want to say that Monday or Tuesday of the week of regionals that I got the, okay, you received your license. You can now like proceed with what you want to do in terms of business. And I was like, thank goodness, hallelujah. But now I need to focus on regionals because this weekend. So didn't really celebrate till like months after, but it was a lot in 1 year, but it's what I had to do. And I think that, like you said, the time frame of what I was doing in my mindset is like, I didn't give myself an option to not, like I had to do it. If I didn't do it, it wouldn't get done. So it's either do it, handle it, get through it, fight and deal with the struggles that you're feeling physically, mentally, but continue to take one step at a time, one day at a time, and get myself there.
That's amazing.
So
Mike, you become a fan of Spanish wines over the years.
Yeah, I'm like listening, and then I'm like ticking little questions in my head for both of you actually. So first, Margaux, Dave, I have to give him credit for getting me much more into wine over the years that we've been together. I would be embarrassed to say what I thought was a good wine in the past. But
we all start somewhere.
Yeah, we do. And actually in 2017, I feel really privileged now. I didn't realize that's when you launched your wine, and all of our mutual friend Cam gave me a bottle of your wine at the games. And I drove it. Yeah, I drove it back from Madison to Ohio. I remember that. So that was really funny. And then when you said the wine that you can grow some nice like Tempranillo and Rioja, yeah, those are my absolute favorite wines from Spain. And I think, Dave, if you remember us being really surprised talking about a location that you wouldn't assume is big on wine. When we went to Israel, we, at least me, and I think you were the same, we weren't anticipating Israel being this like big diverse wine country with really nice wines. And that's just when you were talking about Utah, that was making me think of it. And they had told us stories about, a lot of the immigrants from Poland and Eastern Europe would come in, and then they would, find these apple orchards and slowly turn them into, vineyards and start producing really good wine. And
yeah, Mike and I have been really lucky. Like, we've traveled around the world teaching Power Monkey courses and things like that, but we have a tendency to set up our courses around wine regions. So, we've done wine tastings in Austria, all over Italy and Israel and Cape Town, South Africa and Spain. And so it's like, we're fortunate enough to be we don't just get sent to these locations. We get to pick and choose and say, this location that really has a good bottle that we want to test out, and across the gym next door. That's an important combo that we need.
Yes.
And then the fact that now we'll have our very first wine tasting at a Power Monkey camp coming up is incredibly exciting.
Yeah. So for the listeners out there, Mike was just mentioning that the Power Monkey camp that's coming up in May, first week of May 1st through the 7th. We're excited about it being sold out. It's the furthest we've ever been sold out, and we're lucky enough to have Margaux coming out this time. And we're going to be doing a wine taste on Wednesday night. So for all the participants and all the coaches and the staff, there'll be a good number of us there. We're really excited to introduce this. This is something that we've tried to do in some capacity, meaning that we just drink a lot of wine at camp. But nothing formal. It's more about just drinking a nice bottle of wine. Cam comes out with us quite a bit, and Cam, being a wine aficionado himself, has always tried to impart some wine wisdom on us. But can you tell us a little bit about what types of wines we'll be tasting and what you're sending out?
Yeah, so we'll have 2 different wines we'll be tasting. The first one will be Cheerston. That is actually dedicated to my sister, and it is a painting, one of a painting she did before she passed away. It's called The Purple Tree, but it's a blend. This one will be a blend. This will be a 2018 vintage, so we'll have a blend of 4 different grapes, be Petit Syrah, Petit Verdot, Syrah, and Grenache. It's more of a medium-bodied wine, has an even blend, about an even blend of all those 4 grapes in there. Has a little bit of spice and pepper to it, but nothing that's overpowering. Then we'll also have the Goat, which is greatest of all time. That is a blend of Petit Syrah mainly, a little bit of Syrah, and a little bit of Grenache. So it is our flagship wine. It's the wine we've gotten into distribution into multiple states. Very popular. It has been the wine that we've gotten into. Actually, when we first moved to Vegas, that was the wine we got in here into Vegas. And so that's been something we've been promoting, and people love it. And for me, it's funny because people look at the label, and when we launched and we create our wines and our labels, we wanted something unique. I wanted someone to be able to look at the label and have it be attractive, because about 50% of the people that go buy wine, they base it off the label. Like, oh, cool label, I'll buy that bottle. Or it's unique or different. And I've had people tell me, like, I bought the wine mainly because I had a goat on there. Like, I love goats, or my family has a goat farm. Or, oh, I'm a Capricorn. Or I'm, I love greatest of all time. And that's what it stands for, greatest of all time. And a lot of people will kind of generate to sports, or they'll like default to sports. And when we created it, 2017, Rich was considered the GOAT within the CrossFit realm. And so a lot of people thought, oh, like Rich Froning. And I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be just sport. I want it to be multi-use or multi-identification, meaning, maybe it's a grandma that helped raise you. Maybe it was someone, a friend that was a mentor to you in life in terms of getting through a hard time. Or maybe you had someone in business that helped guide you. That could be the GOAT in your life. And so again, it's something that's not just sport. If it could be sport, that's fine. But I have it be relating to someone that helped guide you. So the greatest of all time, it's all relative to individual, just like things that are challenging the gym are all relative to the individual. So it's something that we'll have that one and the Cheerston wine there. And again, just wanting to share my whole message of working hard and winding down, enjoying the process, celebrating the successes, embracing the struggles, and knowing that, whatever we face every single day, it's hard, it can be challenging, or you could celebrate it, but we aren't guaranteed tomorrow. We aren't guaranteed next year, next month. So really absolving yourself and being able to share it with community, because great wine can be great, but what makes it more amazing is that you get to experience it with someone. You get to share it, whether it's a glass or a bottle. It's that moment and the memory that you're creating is what you're going to remember down the road. And that's what's like, I love being able to share. So I'm very honored. I'm excited. I'll get to share this with you guys and everyone else down there.
Oh, we can't wait. I'm so excited about it. And I'm excited for all the other participants that are going to be there to be able to experience it with us. And we make sure that Thursday morning is a late morning so that everyone can have another couple hours of sleep. to really be able to enjoy the wine, right? Sipping it, but also enjoying maybe an extra glass.
Margaux, the explanation of the name, I appreciate that so much, because that already that makes me more excited to do the tasting, just to be able to kind of pose that question to people, like the greatest of all time, you're sipping on the wine, and you can make that such a full experience, especially with what you do. I know you like to do the yoga, prior to the wine tasting, and being able to draw up a memory just based off of that name, that gives such a cool, deep meaning to it. And like you said earlier, we think of wine as very romantic and romanticized, but it is, because it has there's such a complexity to it, of course, with taste and as a drink, but with the community factor that you said, and with the experiences, and it just it unlocks so many thoughts and emotions. And I think probably we can all agree, having been athletes, the same thing, that training and competition and everything brings to the forefront from our hearts. So it's the name that just that seals the deal for me. Now I love it even more.
That's awesome.
Well, and Mike brought it up right there, this idea of you having started to combine your love of wine with yoga, and it's become kind of one of your signatures. I think it's something you're offering out in Vegas. I remember Cam mentioning it to us quite a while ago when you were first getting it started. Can you tell us about this combination of wine and yoga, and why it's such a perfect fit?
Yes. So when I started, I loved, again, the combination. My first actually yoga and wine night was at the farm in Utah, and just having people come out and kind of slow down the pace, right? I find in the US, we're very go, go, go. It's about the next project, the next timeline. And that's important because it gives us measurable goals to be achievable towards, or put our attention to. But for me, it's like the yoga helps slows me down. I love the idea of focusing on your breath, trying to be as present as possible, allow your body to relax. And I also found not a lot of people not that they don't like yoga or like stretching, they just don't do it, or unless they're forced to do it. It's not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go spend 10 minutes stretching, and then they just like sit on a foam roller on their phone. I mean, I've seen it all. So I think
Yes.
for me, it's like blending. I love yoga. I've done it in the past before I did CrossFit. I loved the mindset, the ability to slow things down, be present, give thanks and gratitude to everything you have. And I felt like pairing that with the wine would be great, because the wine is where you kind of slow down. You can have a conversation, you get to talk to one another, and you actually, not that you're not listening, but you get to actually be there in present moment. And so putting those two together, I was like, well, these are perfect. I've done some like WOD and wine nights or workout and wine, and those have been fun and they've been good. But I think right after fitness, people want like a protein shake or some food before going into wine. And so the pairing of the yoga and the wine have definitely fit better. But for myself, it gets me, one, to slow down, but two, I can help other people slow down and really focus and get into a deeper kind of in touch with their body. And it's been great because I've been able to travel all around the US mostly. Haven't been able to travel abroad and do them, but I've been able to travel to a lot of different places and meet so many different people and talk to them and share my philosophy, because that work hard can be in the gym. It can be, yoga, CrossFit, hiking, walking, whatever it is. And the wind down could be wine. If you don't drink wine, if you don't drink alcohol, it could be eating bonbons on the couch, or, having a cookie, whatever it is. It's just the philosophy of allowing yourself to sit back and just be in that moment versus feel like I have to do something. And I think that for myself, it helps. It also helps me as a reminder, because I'm like, oh, just like one more email, one more project, one more thing. And then I'm on my computer till like 9:00 at night. So I think it's also a reminder to myself to say, practice what I preach, but also allow myself to pull back. So I'm hoping to do more, and I'm looking forward to the tasting that we'll be doing in May. But the yoga for me, I think it allows me to connect with other people in a different way. I think it's also hard. I think, when you have conversations or you have talks where you have that stillness or that moment of quietness, it's hard because our mind starts to go other places. And I think we're so distracted in this world where we have so many things going on, not all bad, but, social media, TV, driving, and project this and project that we don't ever have a time to moment slow down. And when we do that, I think lots of emotions or thoughts flood our mind. And I think that's good for us, because then we can process things that we haven't processed, or we push off to the side. So that's kind of the theme and the idea of why I wanted to bring those two together. I've had great feedback from a lot of people from all over the country that they've enjoyed it. So I hope to continue to do them more.
I love it. I have a little 5-year-old daughter, and she's she's very active. She's running around all the time, and she always tells me if she's not doing something that she wants to be doing, she tells me she's bored, right? And she always says, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored. And we're trying to get her to wrap her head around that the idea of being bored can be a really good thing, to be enlightening and to say, hey, let's figure something out and just enjoy the moment of not having to run around nonstop. As an adult, I think you try to appreciate those moments a little bit more when you have them. But this idea of being able to just sit back and say, I don't have something going on right now. Let my mind expand a little bit and think about something other than just work or something that's immediately needed to get done. And I think what you're trying to put together really helps us get our mind off of just running around nonstop. I am personally one of those people too that have a tendency to be running at 100 miles an hour everywhere I go. So I might have to try one of your yoga classes.
Yeah. Yeah. Margaux, I like you said, so often you see somebody just grab a foam roller or something, and then they're, at the texting or stretching or scrolling. But the idea too, the coupling of yoga and wine. I mean, you enjoy wine when you take your time with it, and, you breathe and you get the full experience. And yoga is the same. I am not an overly flexible human. So yoga has always been interesting for me, but I recently started to even add into my routine, just to slow things down a little bit, is more like forced contemplation and meditation, where I'm not reading anything, I'm not listening to anything. It's literally 10 to 20 minutes of being bored. And like Dave said, that can be enlightening. And I think in our fast-paced society, and especially in CrossFit, you're always looking for the next skill, the next, benchmark to hit. What's the next workout? How do I train for it? And to learn how to just be still and just embrace is a lesson that we could probably all get a lot out of. But it's fun to hear you preach so many things that I think we all know and believe in, and then connect it with some other passions like wine.
Yeah. I really, it's interesting. This was a good number of years ago. I was working with a life coach when I lived in the Bay Area, and she was saying, we're human beings versus human doings. And it's so easy to get up and doing something. And I find it with myself. I'm like, all right, well, there's always something that I could be doing, but I want to just I want to sit with my coffee and stare at the wall and not necessarily think about anything and just absorb, even if it's like 5 or 10 minutes. I think it's good because the thoughts or the emotions that we don't get to be present with, or they're maybe there on the outskirts, like a peripheral, but we're not thinking them because we're on our phone or we're on our computer or, we're doing meetings or whatever. It's like, there's not that time to slip in. And I think that also affects our intuitive abilities in terms of our intuition of like what feels good, what doesn't feel good. Like, ooh, I have a knot in my stomach about this person or that, that situation or whatever it might be. And I think it's important where if you can take, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes to like, meditate or be with your thoughts or whatever, even journaling them down and then taking a moment to just sit and not do that, like be there. I think it would benefit a lot of us in society. I think it would help hopefully decrease stress, because I feel like there's a lot of stress, and stress is all relative. Again, different stress in the gym, stress in the job, like a tiger's running after you, like you're stressed, there's all these different types of stress. But I think that cycle is perpetuating. Is a constant cyclical cycle that if we don't take a moment to try to break it, we're just going to continue down this hill like a snowball, collecting more things and more stress and more things. And then it like gets to the point where at some point it just breaks and crashes open, or it plows into something. And so I think it's really important to, start with 5 to 10 minutes or 2 minutes, whatever it might be, but just take that as small little steps. Just like if you're like trying to walk, right? Hey, cool. You've never walked? Start with 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, and 15 minutes, small gradual steps.
It's those, we like Dave, we say a lot of times, it's the little drills and the little like boring things that build the really cool skills, the final end results that you want. And you've probably experienced that with all of your coaching and training. Everybody's always asking us like, how do I do X, Y, and Z to snatch 200 pounds? Like, well, here's the, boring thing that you do for 5 minutes a day every time you're training. And eventually you'll get what you're looking for. And if you can get your hands in the dirt and kind of embrace that and realize that that's the road that will get you where you want, that'll be a valuable experience. I'm taking control of this on the weightlifting side of things since Chad is not currently here, only because you have referenced weightlifting quite a few times. And I did notice that you recently had a very beautiful snatch with 180 pounds on social media. I was selfishly curious, what percentage is that for you?
So I think my max is like 195. So close up there. And the last time I hit 195 was when I was living in Utah. So 2017, I think.
Okay.
So a couple years ago. And it's funny because I watched, I was like, God, and I'm very critical, obviously, like we are our own worst critics, but I'm like, man, I'm so slow. Like my speed under the bar is like taking forever. But I try to like, again, say, hey, like I haven't been snatching. I don't lift very often. And usually it's in class. I'm trying to change that now. I'm trying to be a little more diligent with the time that I'm in the gym so I can lift more consistently because I like lifting. But I'm like, man, if I'm able to hit that with minimal lifting, hopefully I could, hit the 195 again or hit 200 with more consistent training. And so that's where I'm like, all right, celebrate the success, Margaux, and be that moment.
We do have a heavy snatch night on Wednesday. So maybe before the yoga and wine tasting, you could, you can peak for snatch night.
Led by Mike, so I think he's just trying to.
That's funny.
So on the fitness side, I went through just a fraction of the questions that I have on the wine side, but we just don't have time. So I'm gonna have to ask you after the podcast.
Watch the episode 2.
Yeah, exactly. I want to talk a little bit about just the fitness stuff. Obviously, this is where majority of our listeners probably know you from, your successes in CrossFit and beyond, what you did in Titan Games and all the other amazing things. You're incredibly well known from your fitness achievements. And one of the things that you have coming out now is your new fitness app, the Margaux Alvarez fitness app. And I'm curious about it. There are so many programs and apps and different ways to be training with people virtually these days. I'm curious what got you interested in wanting to put out your own app and what's unique about it and what you're excited about.
Yeah. So I love being able to help people. And I think that stems from a long time ago, my sister passed, not feeling like I could help her. So to be able to help others, I'm hoping that I can help them in the fitness and coaching aspect. And I loved being able to travel around with my time with CrossFit, being able to coach and train others. Like I said, I was a personal trainer before CrossFit, and I loved being able to help others. And it's not just the fitness side that you're helping them with. Sometimes I think it's your listening ear to them. Sure. With other things in their life. And so for myself, it's like, all right, I've kind of been out of the coaching aspect for a little bit while I was focusing on launching the wine company and building that and growing that. And I thought, all right, well, I don't maybe necessarily have the time to do one-on-ones with a lot of people, but if I can coach via my app, via video, put the program out there. And so they, not only do they read it, they can see it, but they also have the ability and the tools to watch videos of me demonstrating, but also sharing my knowledge. I feel like I have a good amount of education and experience under my belt after being a coach over 13, 14 years now. And I think if I could package that up and put it to people so they can visually see it, because I found over the years, especially with social media, people are a lot more visual. Like they want to see the videos, they want to see pictures of it versus just having to read what it positions you have to be in. And I feel like for myself, I'm very visual as well. And so if I could package that up to people and reach more people and hopefully help them virtually versus helping them in person, that'd be one way to connect. And of course, I want to create this community. I've done it in the past with my websites, with the wine, with the community, with the yoga and wine nights. But if I can create more of a community online and have this be a place where people can come and learn, then I can hopefully reach them, not only in the US, but around the world. Then that was kind of my motivation and inspiration behind it. I also would love to be able to do more with the wine and more with the fitness. And so this would be a way and means to bring in other revenue and other resources. So I eventually could have a fitness studio and wine bar so that we could have in-person coaching. We could have, get-togethers or seminars where we bring people in, and I'm helping, whether that's the fitness, the coaching, but also with education or entrepreneur or business, motivation, guidance, whatever that might be. But if I'm able to create enough resources that come in so I can have the fitness studio and the wine bar, I'm able to bring those two pieces, the work hard wine down together. And eventually down the road, down the road, I'd love to be able to create a community spot where I can hopefully provide more education for people that don't have those resources, whether that's about business or about self-care or about, how to manage finances or how to start a small business, whatever it might be. But if I can create information or resources out to people that are seeking it and give them a place where they can come for the health, they can come for the education, they can come for the wine, obviously of age, but create this place where they all can have everything all, like a one-stop shop. That would be the goal down the road. And being able to bring in other individuals from different backgrounds. I know you mentioned the Titan Games, but I was able to meet so many other inspirational individuals from so many different backgrounds. If I can bring them in and, host a podcast or host like a talk show where we can talk to them, I can have a conversation with them and have people ask them questions where they're able to share their experiences. Then I'm able to reach even more people and hopefully inspire others to, make changes in their life or, hopefully help someone else. And there was one moment I think back to years ago when I was in coaching in California, and one of the ladies coming in, she was new to the area, new to the gym. And she's like, I just want to get stronger so I can lift my grandkids. I was like, damn. She's like, picking up groceries and a gallon of milk are heavy, and I don't want it to be the point. And I was like, trying to like not cry. I was like, damn, like there's people out there that don't know where to start. So if I can be that person to say, hey, like this is where you can start, follow my home program on the fitness app, or follow the mobility to increase your stretching. You want to get stronger with your pull-ups, incorporate this program and these exercises into your program, then I can hopefully be kind of a beacon or a guiding light for people that aren't sure where to go. So that was kind of the main inspiration and idea behind it, by bringing the fitness, but also eventually bringing the wine to this community online.
That's exciting. And, if you ever do get to the place where you have a winery and a CrossFit gym connected and you need a lifetime intern, I will be there in a heartbeat to sweep floors, pour wine, and pick great. Whatever you need, I will get on the first.
Taste the wine, make sure the wine tastes good.
Yeah, absolutely. I will do it. Whatever's needed, intern for life.
Yeah, Margaux, I have a feeling your night's going to be a highlight at camp, and you're probably going to have to go on tour with us across the world, because the people that aren't able to come to camp and experience it are going to be requesting that.
Yes, I'm definitely down.
So we're getting close to the end here, Margaux, and we normally end with like a couple of repeated questions, like quick questions that we ask to our guests. I'm going to add a couple of them for you, if that's okay.
Of course.
So first one is you're named after Chateau Margaux in France. Is that correct? Have you been there before? Have you been to Chateau Margaux? Is that a bucket list item for you?
It is. I would love to go there.
All right. Are you a fan of French wine? I
am.
Okay. So next, what wine are you drinking right now that you're excited about?
Well, I'm not drinking any wine right now, but there is a Rioja that I got from a local wine shop. Riojas have kind of been on my kick recently, so I'm trying to drink more Riojas and trying to see what percentages of the Riojas that I love. So whether that's more Tempranillo or a blend of Tempranillo and Graciano or Garnacha, all three, depending on. So that's kind of been the area I'm trying to experiment and explore more, because there's so much wine that I haven't drank that I might as well like try new wines everywhere I go, which is what I share with people. Like the only way you're going to learn is try new wines. I wanted to make it a nice experience. I want people to feel pressure like, oh, I have to drink a certain wine because I only know that. No, try more. Don't drink and get drunk, but just try more.
Yeah, absolutely. The shape of your wine bottle is unique. The goat wine bottle is shaped almost more like a bourbon bottle a little bit. Was there a purpose behind that?
Yes, so that was our first two vintages were that port bottle style bottle, think like a Tortuga bottle. That was to be something unique and different. So people saw it on the shelf. They're like, oh, this is different. I'm going to grab it. So unique labels grabs their eye, unique bottle, even more exciting with the wax on top, even different. It's not as traditional with the cork and capsule. So that was the incentive behind that, was to create something different. So it grabs people's attention.
Got it. Love it. Last quick question that's unique to you. Did you go ever to the Monaco Formula One race?
It's always and I'm so bummed. I lived there and I never went. I was so bummed.
Was it happening while you were there?
So I think they were supposed to have one, but then it getting postponed. But my girlfriend, my roommate that was there, she ended up going back during the spring. And I think, so I want to say it's early spring, mid-spring. And she got to go and she said it was amazing. I was like, so I have to go back just to go and watch and get that experience.
Fair enough. All right. We'll go drink some wine and watch some car racing. That'll be a great little experience. Some point on that. All right. Now to the regular questions. What sport or discipline do you prefer, weightlifting or gymnastics?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I would say weightlifting, because that reminds me of the golf swing. Obviously golf swing has like the swing back, swing forward, but I feel like there's parallels to there for the weightlifting. But I love gymnastics because gymnastics, I feel like if there's anything that anyone should learn is gymnastics, because body control, body weight gives you such good proprioception into anything else. So.
Well, I appreciate the diplomatic answer there and giving gymnastics a little bit of love. Mike and Chad, you guys are going to get a point on that one. But I will say that it's funny that you equate and you find similarities between golf and weightlifting. My coach at Stanford was an amazing golfer. And in fact, he would swing a golf club in practice more than he would coach us. And so he would always, it was a fun collegiate experience, him thinking more about his putting than he was about what we were doing on the apparatus. But in any case, he would always do exactly what you said about weightlifting. He would equate golf swings into gymnastics movement. And for whatever reason, Tiger had just left Stanford when I got there, and Tiger was very much on his mind, and he would always say, the way that Tiger Woods swings a golf club is how you need to swing on high bar. And I never understood anything he was ever saying, but there are some similarities, according to some people who know golf, that gymnastics and golf, the swings are very similar. But in any case, Mike, you get a point on the weightlifting.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say, I think, and I'm a horrible golfer, unfortunately, but the few times that I have had good swings, and you said this earlier, where you were watching your snatch and you wished you were moving faster. I watched it. I think you were moving very, very well and very fast. But I think that's the connection there with golf. If you try to swing harder or fast, you're done. It's not going to be a very good swing. And in weightlifting, when you force it and you try to move fast, or you try to be quick under the ball, you're the opposite, or it's just a total train wreck. And I think that's the beauty of the simplicity of both of the sports. It's this paradox of it's crazy difficult, but it's super simple at the same time.
Patience is hard to teach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Next question. Any guests that you think would be great for us to have on the podcast?
Ooh, are you looking at certain fields, they have to be within CrossFit realm, or?
No, probably more in the wine world. No, basically, anyone that you think might be a good conversation to have. Fitness is fine.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a great question. I might have to get back to you on that. There's sure. I think one person that popped, she's not necessarily in the CrossFit world, but she was on the Titan Games with me, Dr. Jamie Seaman. She's an OBGYN out of Nebraska, out of Omaha, but she does a little bit of fitness, but just kind of her experience and what she went through. She had a similar story where she lost her best friend when they were both pregnant. They were both having their third child. And so it was just, we connected on that, but she just has obviously different background in terms of sports, but I think she'd be someone good, a little different, but if you're looking for more in the specific, I could definitely think of some people and get back to you about that.
No, that sounds perfect. She seems like the kind of person we'd love to have on. And on the book reading side, if you are a book reader, any books you've come across lately that you've been reading?
So I love reading books. It takes me a long time to read them. But I read The Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah.
I finished that. I don't know if you guys have read that one. That one was really good. I just finished kind of a meditation, like Zevia meditation. That one I just wrapped up. I can get the specific name for it. But that was interesting because it talks a little bit about meditation, but a different approach to it, where it's not like you have to be quiet and not think of anything. The approach was very unique and different. And the parallels that she made kind of in life, in relationships, in business was unique. I was like, oh, this is a different approach. So I really like that one. I think it's called Stress Less, Accomplish More.
All right. That's fantastic. Yeah. We are big fans of James Clear and Atomic Habits for sure. And we'll add that other one to our list.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mike, anything you want to add?
No, I was just thinking when you asked anybody that she would recommend for the podcast, I was just going to ask, if you could, sit down with 2 or 3 people and have a glass of wine right now, is there anybody that just pops into your head?
So Gina Carano was actually someone that's popped in my head. She was like that, just what popped in my head. I had the opportunity to meet her back in 2014 when I was training with Katie Hogan in the East Bay area, like Pleasanton area. Got to know her a little bit. Kind of kept in touch over the years. Haven't had that chance. We always missed each other, but to be able to sit down, just have a glass of wine and talk about experiences, life in general, I think that'd be someone that I would love. She's accomplished a lot. She has a very unique story. I love just who she is, her tenacity and her spirit. and what she puts out there. So that'd be something that I'd love to have a conversation with. I love Tiger Woods in terms of what he did with golf in his early years. And that, like, you talk about obsessed, maybe not obsessed with someone, but I looked up to him because I wanted to be what he was doing kind of in the female version, where it's like, I wanted to, you know, be at that spotlight, and I just loved what he was doing. And so that was someone, maybe not necessarily now as much, but that's just someone that, like, you talk about Tiger Woods, like someone that I would have loved to have a conversation with in terms of golf and his experience as a young kid and what he went through with his father to, you know, get to where he was at in the golf world. So.
Fantastic. Well,
Awesome.
before we get you out, is there anything else you have going on right now, or where can people find you right now if they want to learn a little bit more about all the projects you have going on?
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram at 321go GAUX. If they're interested in the app or learning more about the app, it's margauxalvarezapp.com. If they're interested in the wine, they can check out thegoatwine.com. Obviously, we'll be with you guys in about a little over a month, so we can talk about it then too. But if they're interested, they can check me out there.
Fantastic. Well, Margaux, thank you so much for the time today. We'll have part 2 very, very soon, where it will be
all wine.
All wine. We'll start
All wine.
talking to you about wine, but thank you so much. I appreciate indulging on some of the questions that I had about the wine industry, and I'm so excited to not only meet you in person and spend some time. We spent some time in Waterpalooza, but I'm excited about being able to actually sit down with you and have a glass of wine and learn more about the wine business in person when we see you at camp. For all of you out there listening, be sure to head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for services and upcoming events. Check out our Instagram pages for regular teaching and technical content at Power Monkey Fitness, at Dave Durante, and at Mike Service. On behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your hosts. I am Dave Durante with my co-host this week, Mike Service. And until next time, thank you all for listening.